Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Julia, and today we're going to talk about one of the most overlooked but crucial parts of your novel, and that is the side character. Now, your main characters may carry the spotlight, but it's your side characters that give your story texture, richness, and its heartbeat. They're the ones who make your readers laugh, cry, and even shout. Think of a side character like Lieutenant Dan in Forrest Gump. The story definitely wouldn't be the same without him. So that's what I want to help you do today. Create some amazing side characters that don't steal the show from the main character, but help you to create a rich, complex novel.
You have a story to tell, but you don't know where to start. Let me show you how to free your story. I teach you how to write and how to dig deep in your soul to release your story and make a difference in the world.
Welcome to the Julia Amante channel. If you're new to my channel, I am Julia Amante. I'm a women's fiction author, and I make videos on Fridays to help you write your stories. Great side characters don't just fill up space or challenge them as they keep the story moving forward. As I work on my current novel, I'm asking myself, how many side characters do I need? What are their roles going to be in the story? How captivating should they be? Are they going to appear in future novels? Should I include them more or less in my story? So as I answer these questions for myself while I'm writing, I thought that I would make a video and share with you my thoughts and my suggestions. So as you start to create these secondary characters and you have this casting room in your mind, you want to ask these questions, and you might wonder, do the same rules apply for your secondary characters as for your main characters? So when you're creating your main characters, you have certain things that you want them to achieve. Do you need the same for your secondary characters? And for the most part, I would say yes, except that there are some differences, some very big differences for your secondary characters, because though they do have goals, though they do have certain similarities to your main character, it's going to be different the way you approach it. So let's talk about the first thing, which is to give your secondary characters purpose. So this is something that they do share with the main character. Every character in your story should serve a purpose. They should have a reason for being in your story. They should help your character to achieve their goal or get in the way of them getting their goal, but they should have a purpose in the story. They have to have a reason for existing. So you can ask yourself a few questions. One is like, how does your character support your protagonist's journey? Or what role do they play to reinforce the story's theme, for example? What happens if I remove them from my story? Does it impact the story? And if not, then do I need them? Can you have three characters kind of doing the same thing and combine them into one character? The fewer you have, the better, because it's less characters for your reader to keep in their mind. And it also just makes it a lot simpler for you as you're creating these different people, not having to continue to bring them back in or think about where they are. So it makes it much easier. If you can combine them into one, it's a lot better. So I mentioned Forrest Gump. Let me talk about Forrest Gump. So it was a movie, obviously, but it was a book by Winston Groom first. So he was the author that created the novel. Lieutenant Dan features very prominently in that story. And so what is his purpose? Why is he there? And he represents something. He represents the bitterness, right, of not achieving your dream or your goal, the struggle to find meaning after trauma, which contrasts really well with Forrest Gump's journey, because obviously he has trauma to overcome, but yet he looks at life completely differently and in a more positive way. He moves through life with acceptance and with optimism, where Lieutenant Dan kind of resists his fate, right? He's miserable and he's angry until Forrest comes and influences him. So he's a very necessary part of the book. He's not just any character, he's not just any side character, but he's there for a certain purpose that works well with Forrest. If you removed him, for example, what would you be losing? You'd probably be losing powerful reflections on destiny, on resilience, and on transformation. He's more than just a friend or a sidekick or a side character. He embodies the thematic question of what happens when life doesn't turn out the way you expected. So that's the first thing, is making sure that your side characters are there for a reason and that they have their own purpose. Now, the second thing is to introduce your side characters with intention. And this is going to depend on how much that side character is going to be. Is it just a walk-on character, like an Uber driver that just comes and gives your character a ride and then you never see him again? Or is it somebody who's going to be reoccurring in the story or has something important to say or do? If the character is going to come back, then you want to make them visible. You want to give them some mannerisms. You want to give them something that the reader can attach to so that they recognize this character when he comes back. For example, if you did have an Uber driver and you wanted to give this Uber driver a purpose, then you'd have to, again, sketch this person out a little bit more. So let's say that your heroine goes on dates every Friday night and this same Uber driver comes and picks her up and takes her to her date. Well, then you have some questions to ask yourself. Who is this Uber driver, male or female? Does he speak? Does he say anything? Does he give advice? Is he just a helpful ear for the heroine after her failed dates every single time? And he's there to listen and just kind of support her by giving her an ear. Does he provide safety? If not, then maybe she has a different Uber driver each time and it doesn't really matter. But that actually could be purposeful as well, right? So maybe just like the different guys, there's a different Uber driver and it ends up that not the actual person of the Uber driver is important, but the character of Uber drivers, right, means something in the story. So you have a nameless driver that shows up that you don't really see, that you don't really notice. You just know that it's a different person, and maybe each person says something different each time. So you have these questions to answer though, right? On, do you want this person to be somebody who comes back, and do we need to know something about him? Or is this just a walk-on character that serves a very small purpose? He delivers a meal and then he leaves. But either way, you need to decide how you want to introduce this side character. And again, the more important the side character is, the more you're going to make him visible. We need to hear him, see him, and know a little bit about him. Number 3 is to let your characters be real people, not just props. So even though the side character is not as important as the main character, we still need to believe that it's a real person. And so we need to know a little bit about this person. Not an entire backstory, but maybe some motivation. Maybe the side character is a best friend, or maybe this character is a brother or a sister, a family member. That person may be juggling their own issues that could contrast with the main character's problems, or could actually mirror the main character's issues. You might have a sidekick that's an antagonist. But either way, you need to figure out how this side character is fitting into the fabric of the story alongside the main character. Now let's go back to Forrest Gump for a minute and talk about another side character, Jenny. Now Jenny could have been written as just a kind of a flat love interest of Forrest, somebody that he had a crush on. But the author does a really, really great job with this character. She's not just a character for Forrest to yearn after. She is very complex. She's got many issues that she's dealing with, from abuse to her, sexuality and drug addictions. She's a tragically flawed character, which makes her likable, and we like her and we don't like her, right? We want her to succeed, and we are disappointed when she doesn't. But she's fully human and we're not likely to forget her. And so all these layers of this character make her feel very real. She's not just a prop. She's an actual person. She's a character with her own journey. And every time that she comes back into the story, we want to know more about her. Like, what is she doing now? So readers may not always like Jenny, but they believe her. They believe that she's a real character. And that's what you want for your side characters. You want us to feel that, yeah, aside from the relationship they have with the main character, they have their own life that's going on somewhere else. They have their own motivations and they have their own wounds. Now, the fourth thing you want to remember is that you want to balance the spotlight with the support. Okay, so we don't want our side characters, we want to love them, but we don't want them to take over the story and people care more about them than they do about the main character. So as much as we love Jenny, we really focus on Forrest. We really want to follow his story. But every time she comes back in, we're really excited to hear what's going on next. So that's what you want for your side characters. So we want to balance that out. Now, some of the things you can do is give your side characters distinct strengths, but don't let them solve the protagonist's central problem. They can give advice, but never give them the solution. Make sure that their story arc never competes with the main character. So they can mirror it, they can contrast it, but you never want them to overshadow your main protagonist's arc. So just pay attention. If you see that your side characters are starting to overshadow your main character, if you're starting to fall in love with your side characters more than your main characters, you have a problem. You need to ease up on that. And number 5 is you have to decide how many side characters you need. So like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, you sometimes might not want to have too many, or you want to combine a few. A good rule of thumb is that you want to keep your core circle kind of small. So you don't want to have more than 3 or 4 side characters that appear all the time. In Forrest Gump, who do you have? You have Lieutenant Dan, you have Jenny, and you have Mom, right? Mama. You have those 3. Those are the main ones. Then there's a lot of other side characters that come in and out of the story, but the 3 core ones, those are the ones that return again and again. And then for the minor ones, again, can you combine a few of them? Is there one character that can do the job of 2, 3, 4 characters? I read a really good book by one of my favorite authors, Luis Alberto Urrea, and the book was The House of Broken Angels. And like I said, one of my favorite authors, I really love his writing, but I had a hard time with this book because there were so many characters. There were a lot of characters, and I had to kind of go back and say, like, wait a minute, who is this? And whose cousin is this? And whose brother is this? Now, he probably did this on purpose, having a lot of different people in there, but it was hard for me as the reader to, especially if I put the book down, to come back and say, well, wait, who's who and who's related to who? So you don't want your reader to do that. You don't want your reader to be confused. You don't want your reader to start to have to flip pages to try to figure out who your side characters are. So remember that if your side characters are not helping to move the plot forward, if they're not adding something to the story, then you need to take them out. They need to deepen the world and not confuse it. So the thing to remember is that you want to make sure that your side characters are essential to the world. So for example, the way to see this more clearly is to look at your own work. So go back to a story that you're writing or you've written in the past and pick one side character and ask yourself, what is their purpose in this story? How do they reveal the theme, or how do they challenge my protagonist? Then write a short scene from that character's point of view. It's kind of fun to do this because it helps you to bring that character to life and to start seeing them like a real person. So even if it's never going to make it into the novel, that's okay. It's just a little exercise. Taking that character and maybe writing a scene that you already wrote from your main character's point of view, and this time write it from the side character's point of view. What does that character see? How does that character feel? And start to see if you can integrate this character better into your story. Ultimately, the test of whether you need a side character or not is if the story can exist without them. The answer is no. If their absence would be missed, then you're doing a great job because that character needs to be there. But if you took that character out and it really wouldn't make a big difference in the story, then you have a different answer, right? You know that this character probably isn't necessary, or that you need to give this character more of a purpose in the story. When readers finish reading your book, they may not remember everything, but they're going to remember your characters and how your characters made them feel. So you want to populate your story with characters that are vivid, that feel real, that touch your readers, so that when they finish reading the story, those characters do stay with them for a long time, hopefully forever. So as always, if you found this video helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, share this with friends, and leave a comment. Let me know from the books that you've read, who's your favorite side character or sidekick from either a movie or a book. I'd love to hear it. So again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again next week.